like ZBrush and all that stuff, I'm just going to go over what the assignment is for this week, because I feel like that'll sort of help contextualize the stuff that we're actually doing in ZBrush today. So the assignment this week is basically pick something with a little bit of organic detail in it. So the assignment specifically says like something clothy, like a cushion or like bed sheets or like a cloth bag or something like that. Honestly, I'm feeling kind of flexible on like what you actually choose to do. It should just be something, again, with organic detail. So if you want to do like a piece of fruit, I also mentioned if you can try to texture like a face with, you know, like a skin texture or something like that. I provided a file for that, but just like, if you're gonna do something like really weird, just like let me know, run it by me, shoot me an email or whatever, and I'll let you know if it makes sense or not for the assignment. But basically you're just gonna like model the object. It doesn't need to be like super insanely like crazy fancy of a model, and you don't need to model in like every single little detail, because you're gonna be going in and sculpting in the rest of the details basically in ZBrush or Mudbox, and then exporting a displacement map and rendering all of that in Maya. So theoretically you could do something like a little cushion and just make like a relatively simple little sort of cube model, and then take that into ZBrush to actually do most of the work with any like folds or wrinkles or anything like that in the cushion. And as usual, just like 3 renders of your object. If you could zip me your whole project folder, and like all of your textures, all of that stuff. I don't necessarily need or want your like ZBrush or Mudbox projects or folders, files, just because they tend to be large and they're going to make the downloads take forever. So unless you have a specific question about like your ZBrush or Mudbox files, you are more than welcome, if not encouraged, to not include those in your submission. But yeah, so I have a few examples of like different cushions and stuff, but are there any like initial questions about any of the stuff I just went over? All right. So again, here's just some like random examples of cushion models that I found that I thought might perhaps be helpful to look at. So this is the first one. If I haven't given you guys my like I love Sketchfab spiel yet, this is Sketchfab. I kind of love it. It's marvelous. It's an online, basically 3D model viewer. So you can like upload your files, look at other people's files, and rotate them around. It's going to render in real time. Sorry, what am I saying today? If you want, you can like rotate the lighting. It's super, super nice. Honestly, I use this a lot for like 3D modeling stuff for clients. I'll just like send them 3D previews because it's easier than screenshots. But there's a really powerful tool. So if you look at the bottom right of the little display window, you'll see this like square pancake menu thing. If you click that, it's the model inspector, and you can actually go through and like inspect how this is made. So you can look at like the wireframe of this object. Like this is literally just like the topology of all of the stuff that they've made. You can go through, look at all of the individual maps that they put on for like roughness, metalness, base color, like all of that stuff. So it's really interesting. I've actually learned a lot just by like wandering through Sketchfab and just sort of looking at different people's stuff, and seeing like how they made stuff. It's actually really good if you're, especially for like game assets, to see like how people created different environmental effects like fog and smoke and fire and all that good stuff. Anywho, in this case, I just wanted to look at, so right above wireframe, there is matte cap and matte cap plus surface. So matte cap basically just takes like the basic model, strips any texturing away, and just like applies a sort of weird generic silver texture to it. Matte cap plus surface is going to be the basic model plus any bump maps, normal maps, or displacement maps you put on. Sketchfab treats displacement maps like texture deformers, so I don't really count those much, if at all, in Sketchfab, but in this case, if you toggle back and forth between them, you can see, so like here's the basic model, and then here's the extra detail, like the little wrinkles here, the overall texture of the cloth. They've added like a seam around the side. So that is all like extra detail that they'd put in with texturing. that just isn't present in the regular model, because why on earth would you want to model all of that? You could, it'd be gross. So that's basically like the idea of what you're going to be doing for the assignment this week is, again, take like a relatively simple base mesh. I mean, if you want to do something crazy and complex, obviously you're welcome to, I guess, but you don't really need to for this assignment. But so just like take simple base mesh, and add maps to add additional detail to it. So if you do anything like cloth, you're going to want to make sure, like, is there, you know, you can't, basically, like, you'd have to have a seam somewhere, so, like, be mindful of where the seams are. Add those in if there's, like, visible stitches in whatever you're doing, throw those in as well. And then put in some kind of texture for the basic cloth. I mean, you can see, just with this, it's, like, a very sort of thick corduroy-looking material of the cloth, whereas this is something maybe a little bit finer, like woven stuff. So this is like all stuff to consider for this week's assignment. Here's a really aggressive, slightly less relevant assignment, or slightly less relevant example. This is an example of an overly complicated base mesh. This was done with simming cloth. If you want to play with it, you can, I guess, but this is excessive. So if I look at the model editor, you can see, like, this literally is just a dense mesh of cloth. Like, it is actually just crinkled in there. But mostly what I wanted to look at in this was, so here's the, just what's actually modeled in. You can see they've actually modeled in all of the little, like, pulls in the cloth here, which is, like, honestly obnoxious even for me. But basically what they've done here is they've added either a bump map, it looks like, and they've used that to apply a leather texture over their model to help give it a little bit of extra, like, interest and detail to the headboard that really makes it kind of pop out and have an interesting overall look to it. So again, if you're doing something clothy, make sure that you throw in, like, the detail for, like, whatever kind of thread, like leather stitching, is in your actual cloth thing that you're making. I think this one I was just like, yeah, this one I just threw in as an example of, like, what could be improved about this. So they started out with, like, a fairly, I mean, this is like a really pretty basic mesh. It looks like they might have tried to model a seam in, sort of. Here's the mat. Ew, gross. Very strange little lumpy pillow. But basically, I think I was using this one as an example of, you can look at the final render versus, like, no post-processing. I don't know. But this would be an example of maybe needing a few more maps to really sell the overall look of this. So, I mean, for one, there's, like, more or less no wrinkles in this pillow, which feels a little bit unnatural. But in terms of the actual detail of the cloth itself, to me, this is definitely some kind of either, like, heavy embroidery or, like, that weird fabric where it's, like, fuzzy velvet patches in it. So that would be something where you'd probably want to go in and add additional maps for, so you can see here's the diffuse map for color. Specular glossiness just has, like, a generic white over the entire thing. Whereas if they added a few more maps to, like, glossiness, maybe added a little bump map to make this a little bit raised, that would, like, really help sell that this is an actual cloth object, if that makes sense. So yeah. Does that kind of make sense? Like, you know, what to do for this assignment, like why I showed you these examples? Cool. So again, what am I doing? Where am I going? So yeah, all those examples are at the bottom of the assignment if you want to look at them. Here's the long version description. This is what the previous assignment was from, like, last time this class was taught or whatever. It might be, there just, like, might be some helpful stuff. It was, like, specifically they had to do a fruit, but there might be some helpful stuff about, like, how to think of organic models and details. So you guys, like I said, are welcome to do a fruit. You're welcome to use that, like, weird face I uploaded and, like, try to texture the face. Just bear in mind that, like, if you do, so, like, citrus tends to work well for fruit because it has, like, a very sort of skin, like, lumpy texture to it. But be it, even if it's, like, citrus or, like, faces, pretty much nothing is ever, like, really smooth for that kind of stuff. Like if you think about your face, like if you get close enough, you can see all the little like pores and details and like, you know, bumps. Maybe there's like moles in the skin, stuff like that, like wrinkle lines around your eyes. Lips are gonna have a different texture from like the top of your nose versus like your eyelids versus your forehead. So this is all stuff to like keep in mind when you're doing this assignment. The goal is to make it as realistic as possible and get as much detail in there for whatever you're doing. If you do choose to do a face and you can't, faces and skin has like subsurface scattering and stuff, which you're welcome to play with, but I haven't gone over that, so mostly you could just, you know, try to make some kind of like reasonable looking texture and put your map on it, and don't worry if it looks like perfectly skin-ish, if that makes sense. But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much the goal of this assignment. And then if you do a head and you want to do something like try to do something like lizard skin or something like that on it, go in and look at actual lizards, because a lot of times they'll have like different shaped or different size scales throughout their body. So that would be something, maybe like pick a lizard. Like if you did like a horny lizard or like a horny desert lizard, whatever the heck it's called. I think these guys are adorable. I don't know why, but like you can see there's like a bunch of different shaped and size scales on it. So this might be something, again, just like pick a lizard you think is cool and then just sort of like map the scale shape onto a human head a little bit and just like try to kind of morph it to be something realistic. Love these guys. Anyway, so that's pretty much the assignment for this week. Any questions on that? All right. Cool. With that being said,